Kenya Airways calls themselves the pride of Africa. Ethiopian Airways calls themselves the new spirit of Africa. However, I don't think either of their business classes matches my new favorite business class in Africa, and that is Air Senegal. Welcome to Dakar, Senegal, where we're going to be hopping on board Air Senegal's signature A330-900 on their flight from Dakar out to New York's John F. Kennedy Airport. Air Senegal operates this route twice a week in addition to having a once daily flight to Paris Charles de Gaulle on their A330neos as well. Now when you get to Dakar Airport, there is a couple different stations you have to pass through. The first is a ticket check to get to the area where you can check your bags. Luckily, once you get here, there is a business class specific check-in area, considering that some of the lines do get long at times. From then I was able to head on to the main check-in area. At this point it was pretty much empty, but once again there is another dedicated business class check-in area. Once your bags are checked, you have to head through your immigration, of course. Once again, the lines can get long, although at this time it wasn't too bad, and off to the side, there is once again a specific, dedicated business class area. So if you're holding a business class ticket, all things said and done, you can pretty much get out into the terminal within a matter of a few minutes. Once through immigration, you do have to pass through the mandatory duty-free shop, which funnels you back into the main part of the terminal, which for one reason or another they did have to check my documents one more time upon leaving that duty-free shop. But once leaving, you do get into the main part of Dakar's terminal. Not the biggest terminal in the world. They do have 6 jet bridges as well as a few hard stands as well, so the capability of handling about 10 flights at a time, although they never really will fill up to that capacity. And in addition to that, the only wide bodies that they really have are their flights to Paris and the one flight to New York. There are 2 lounges here in Dakar's airport, one at each end of the terminal. The Odyssey Lounge was undergoing some renovations at this point, so it was closed in my visit, but the other lounge at the other end of the terminal, we did get to check out shortly after. In addition, we see a number of Air Senegal advertisements. Teranga Spirit is their motto, Teranga translating to hospitality, and Wolof, which is the local native language. Now the Ultimate Lounge here never opened in my time there, but the smoking area did. It's paid access, and obviously any French-influenced area takes their smoking areas very seriously. Just adjacent to that was the kids area, which although being large didn't have too much stuff to do, and I never really saw anybody using it. What Dakar Airport does do really well is their restaurants. They actually have a good amount of restaurants despite only having a few flights at a time. Restaurants with all different types of foods from what seemed like all different parts of the world as well. Before long, we reached the other end of the terminal, and when I say before long, I mean really it only does take a few minutes to actually get from one end of the terminal to the other. First things first, we see the Delta signage. Delta is the other airline that flies between JFK and Dakar as well. They operate twice a week, just like Air Senegal. So those are your 2 choices if you are trying to fly direct between North America and Senegal. At the other end of the airport, just like I mentioned, is the other lounge, the Topkapi Lounge, which is dedicated for business class travelers or priority pass holders. If you're traveling in business class, you will get this little slip here when you check in, which allows you to get that lounge access without having any questions. It's also located adjacent to one of their main wide-body gates. At this point, it was the Air Senegal flight leaving for Paris Charles de Gaulle shortly. It would have been nice if the Odyssey Lounge was open, so I could have walked right out of that lounge and onto my New York flight. However, like I mentioned, the airport's not too big, so the walk wasn't too crazy anyway. Anyway, though, heading into our lounge today, you'll notice that it isn't exactly the biggest lounge in the world, but considering that the airport's never all that busy, it never got more than half full anyway. Considering there's plenty of seating, you'll always have somewhere to go, and there's plenty of charging ports as well. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of window seats, so you have to get here early if you want a window seat, or stay patient and move into one once one becomes available. I ended up grabbing a seat that, although not next to the window, did have a good view out the window, and the people were nice enough to let me go over to the window if I ever needed to get some footage. As far as the views we were able to get from the window, you can see the Ethiopian A350-900 waiting for its next morning departure, as well as the Mauritania Airlines Embraer waiting for its departure shortly after ours actually. Tucked away in the corner is Air Senegal's other A330neo heading out to Paris Charles de Gaulle. Air Senegal has 2 A330neos in their fleet, one that's owned and operated by Air Senegal, and one that is owned by Air Senegal but operated by Airhub Airlines based in Malta. My theory behind this, because the Malta airplane is the only one that flies to the US, is that they most likely were using that because Airhub has the certificates in place to operate in the US, whereas Air Senegal was having trouble with the process. This is more of just speculation, so if you know more about this or you have other theories, go ahead and let me know down in the comments. The food in this lounge operates in more of a buffet style, so you can go up and grab whatever food you'd like. Starting off, they have a couple sandwiches. They have a meat sandwich, which is mostly chicken, and a veggie sandwich, which is just a slice of cheese within 2 pieces of bread. Next to that is some chafing dishes with a couple different hot options, fish, chicken, or beef. And then around the corner is where they have the other options that you could make a salad out of, or some dessert options as well. I decided to log into the free Wi-Fi, which is available throughout the airport, but there is an upgraded Wi-Fi for those passengers hanging out within the lounge. Then I grabbed my plate of food. I got a nice assortment. I had one of the vegetarian sandwiches, which is how I learned that it was really just a piece of cheese between pieces of bread. I got a nice pasta salad that was pretty good and topped it with some of the spicy olives they had available. And considering I had eaten pretty much nothing but fish for the week leading up to it, I decided to switch it up and have some beef, which was also marinated in an excellent sauce. After not long in the lounge, it was time to head back out to my gate. Walking back, I found this main sign that shows you all the gates and which flight is out of each gate. I thought it was an excellent way of displaying this, and I honestly wish more airports would display stuff like this. It really helped me figure out exactly where I was and where I needed to go to find my gate, or if I wanted different restaurants and stuff as well. At the other end of the terminal here is where we found our flight to New York, where they were setting up the boarding process for business and economy class passengers. This long line here is for additional screening. Every single passenger had to open their entire carry-on bag so they could go through every item you had in there to make sure that it wasn't anything dangerous. This took a long time and delayed our boarding significantly before we actually were able to get off the ground. In addition, they didn't actually board by business class and then economy class. I was able to skip that screening line by going up to the front and asking if there was a business class line, but they eventually just called for boarding and everyone rushed the stand. Luckily, I was still able to be one of the first ones on board, which was great because I was anxiously awaiting what was inside this cabin. When you enter Air Senegal's business class cabin, the first thing that hits your eye is the red accent behind each seat. It really just makes every seat pop. That, combined with the mixed browns that actually make up each seat, I think is an excellent look to this cabin. It's also my first time in the A330neo, and I thought the cabin felt very spacious. I learned shortly after boarding that it was because there was no overhead bins over the middle sections. Only the side sections had the overhead bins, which was fine, they didn't get filled up anyway, and it made the cabin feel extra large. Now the seats alternate between being closer to the windows and closer to the aisle. The better seats are the private seats in the odd number rows. The odd number rows allow you to have the console closer to the aisle, so you have that console separating you from the aisle and other customers walking past. Here's what the even numbered seats look like. It's the same seat, although you're fully exposed to that aisle. Now when it comes to the middle seats, the even numbered middle seats have the console in the middle separating you from the neighbor, which is nice if they're a stranger, but just like the even number window seats, you're right on the aisle, meaning that you don't have a ton of privacy. Whereas the odd number middle seats have the console to the side blocking you from the aisle, so you do have a little more privacy. However, you are right on top of your neighbor, which is nice if you're traveling with someone and you want to spend the flight with them. My seat today is going to be 3A, meaning that I am in one of the more private seats closer to the window and having a console to my right side blocking me from the aisle. I do think the finishings that they chose to spread throughout this airplane were amazing, from the fake wood countertops to the mixture of the dark brown and light brown seat itself to even the flooring and the carpet they chose to go throughout the cabin. I thought that it made the cabin stunning. In addition to the beautiful seat design, we were also given a pillow, which in my opinion was kind of minimalistic and not the most comfortable pillow. But the blanket on the other hand was actually of a really great quality and kept me perfectly warm throughout this flight. Directly in front of you is your footrest, and underneath that footrest is a little footwell where you can store your shoes if you remove those in flight and rest your feet up on the footrest, where they also chose as the weirdest location in my opinion that I've ever seen a literature pocket on an airplane. In that literature pocket amongst the magazine that you'll see for the duty-free store, you'll also see the safety card registered to Airhub Airlines, not Air Senegal. Above the footwell is the tray table. There's a little bit of a release button there, a release switch. Once you pull that tray table can slide out. Not the biggest tray table in the world, but none of the food trays they served us were all that big either, so it was plenty big for this flight. Above that's where you're going to find your seatback TV, and you can see the seat in front of you also provides a little bit of privacy down by your feet as well. At the base of the console on the right is where you're going to find the charging ports, the universal charging outlet, and the USB charging port. It was kind of an awkward spot unless you're just trying to rest on the console next to you. Off to your right is the countertop. You can see the finishings on the countertop and the wall around the countertop are both different, but both excellent in my opinion. There's also the buttons to adjust the seat. They were touchscreen, so unfortunately I did hit them many times throughout the flight, adjusting the seat accidentally. Up on the countertop, they provided us with a water bottle that I put in the water bottle holder. They also have this storage here. This is unfortunately the only real storage in this seat. It's not huge. I was able to store my chargers in there, and that was about it. On top of that, there was a little bit of a ledge, although you admittedly couldn't fit much there. Above that was a seatback TV remote, which was minimalistic, but it was small, it was lightweight, and it was nice. It did have a little touchpad, and we'll take a look at that a little bit more when we start looking at the in-flight entertainment system. When you think of famous Senegalese, especially those that have affected American culture that I may be more familiar with, no one comes to mind any more than Akon. The famous music artist has given a lot of his wealth back to his homeland of Senegal to assist the communities and cultures that he comes from through local projects and contributions. Because of this, I was so surprised to look up and see none other than Akon himself getting into seat 1A on our flight. Don't believe me? Here's an awkward picture that I took with him. I had to go say hello considering earlier this trip I was just at one of the projects that he funded within Senegal. He was so amazingly kind, especially considering the amount of people asking for pictures or saying hi as he just wanted to settle into his seat for this overnight flight. I definitely felt bad after the fact to have interrupted him, but felt fortunate to have met him, and he was so amazing and kind to every person that came up to him. Now that I was done being starstruck, it was time to admire the beautiful amenity kit that they just handed out to us. It was one of the more full amenity kits that I've had in any of my travels, including things like a pen, a toothbrush set, both lotion and a shaving cream to go with the hand razor, the hairbrush and hair comb, the tissues, hand sanitizer, mints, eye mask, earplugs, and socks, all that including the beautiful carrying case that it came in. They also handed us out these headphones that unfortunately weren't exactly of the greatest quality, but they were comfortable enough to wear at least sleeping on this somewhat long flight. I also wanted to get a great view of this wingtip. Unfortunately, the window had completely fogged up, and so I was going to have to wait till we were in the air for that. So instead I went to the lavatory to get a nice picture and review of that. The lavatory was pretty basic and unfortunately was already showing some sign of age and wear and tear. However, the things that I did like about it was actually the wall patterns. I thought that the pattern that was carried throughout the wall was beautiful. In addition to that, they also had this nice purple mood lighting carried throughout the entirety of the bathroom. And my personal favorite feature, the step to activate the trash can so you don't have to push down on it with your hand every time. Next, taking a look at the in-flight entertainment system while I waited for us to start our flight and push back. I was a little wary about what I would find considering New York is the only English-speaking destination that Air Senegal flies to outside of Africa. Up in the top left, the menu button pulls up the different categories, and they're pretty basic: movies, TV, music, and games. Once you get to the movies, for example, you'll see 129 different movie options, which is a lot. However, once you filter to English only, that number does drop significantly. There's enough to keep me occupied for my 8.5-hour flight, but if I were to take this flight again, I'd probably end up rewatching a lot of those same things. TV was a lot of the same story. You'll see there's 57 different TV programs, all with a few episodes. However, there's not a whole lot of English options, and especially like comedy, for example, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was all they have. I'm not complaining, but if that's not what you're going for, there's not really anything else to choose from. In addition, they do have music. They have a bunch of different categories here, and actually some pretty great music selection that I did actually look through a little bit. What I am surprised in is there's not a single Akon album on this entire playlist. The good thing is with any of the movies, TV shows, or music, you could just hit the star here, add it to your list of favorites, which is accessible on any page there with the star on the top of your screen. So it makes it easier to find things that you've saved, and if for some reason you decide you don't want to watch any of them, all you gotta do is hit the little minus, and they're gone. There are 15 game options as far as the games go, so not a terrible selection, but they've got 2048, which could keep me occupied for at least a whole flight. After that, I explored the Kids Zone, which just has a few movies and a few TV shows, but if you're really just trying to keep your child occupied on your flight to Paris or New York, they've got plenty of stuff for that. Last thing on the in-flight entertainment is this absolutely grueling survey. It was an entire one question. Now looking at the map feature, the drawback is that it's not interactive. It cycles through a few different views and you can pull up the flight info, but you can't move it and you can't zoom. In addition, the picture-in-picture wasn't working, and so if you pulled the map up, it actually paused the feature instead of showing it on top of the feature. In addition, the other drawback of this cabin is it was kept a little bit warm, especially with the doors open, and there's no individual air vents at all in this cabin. I was fortunate to have 2 windows to myself on this flight. Unfortunately, they were still fogged up due to the relative humidity between outside versus inside the airplane. Then I went through the in-flight magazine hoping I would find some cool stuff about Air Senegal within that. Unfortunately though, the entire magazine is pretty much just one big duty-free shop. You can see the different categories there, but as you flip through, it's pretty much just more and more pages of different things you can buy. The only thing that was remotely flight specific was the last page, which has the different food offerings for purchase. As we taxied out, I got whatever I could through my foggy windows, although this was pretty much the only good shot I got, a view of the terminal with the lights barely shining through the fogginess of the window. What you will notice, however, is shortly after takeoff with the relative wind passing over the airplane, some of that fog actually eventually did wash away from the airplane and we got a great view of the city of Dakar as we departed the area. Once I was in the air, I controlled the ambient lighting setting in order to dim the cabin a little bit more. All it controls is the one singular light down by your feet, but if you are trying to get some sleep, it does help to darken it. Playing around a little more with the in-flight entertainment system, you can also see what I was talking about here, where whenever I open my map, it stops the program rather than playing it on top of the program, which was a little bit annoying. I did like this remote for sure though. That little touchpad was awesome. You were able to just kind of move that around and click on things. So if you were in a reclined state and you didn't want to have to lean all the way forward and touch the screen, this was a great alternative. Next up, I wanted to explore their in-flight Wi-Fi. Now, Air Senegal's A330neos do have in-flight Wi-Fi, and it might not be the best in-flight Wi-Fi I've ever experienced, but it does exist, and especially if all you're trying to do is send messages, it works perfectly for that. Anyway, it's about 20 bucks for 300 megabits. There's no full flight package. I ended up purchasing that so I was able to browse, and you are able to pause and resume that connection if you decide you want to take a nap and you don't want it to be wasted on notifications. But it didn't take long before that was set up and I was free to browse the internet. And I'm not exaggerating when I say less than a minute after I purchased my Wi-Fi session, they came to the cabin with these scratch-off vouchers for free premium Wi-Fi sessions for all business class passengers. So I was a little bummed that I had just paid $20, but it really just meant that after that session was up, I had another session free of charge, which would cover almost the entirety of the flight. And right here with my arm on the armrest, you can see just what I meant earlier when I kept hitting those buttons accidentally to recline or unrecline my seat when I didn't actually want to do so. Shortly after, they came around with these wet scented towels, which meant that meal service was quickly approaching us. Now, I know in the lounge I said I was done with fish, but I had to have a little bit more fish before I had left Senegal officially for a little while. And it was probably the best fish I had ever had on board an airplane, although the chili paste, I put the entirety of it on the rice, and boy was it spicy. I also did like the little Air Senegal logos that was on all of the plating and silverware. These are the cups that the drinks came in. They do have the little mini Air Senegal logo. A little bit different than the cups on the A321 business class, which I will put a picture of right here. You can see on these ones they do have a little bit more of the Air Senegal logo, which I do like, although just any branding is nice to see. For dessert, they had this nice little cake, although I honestly couldn't tell you quite what it was. They also had the nice little fruit plate that went with it. They also offered coffee or tea to anyone that wanted it. I decided to take a nice glass of tea before I went to bed. And once again, from the A321 footage, here's a clip of the beautiful teacups that they give you on board any Air Senegal flight. With meal service wrapped up, there was about a little over 7 hours left in this flight, and so I decided I would get a little bit comfy. I hadn't quite decided yet if I was going to sleep or not, considering that I had another long flight back to San Francisco once I landed in New York, and I figured I'd sleep on that. But eventually the cabin got so dark that I figured I might as well at least rest and see if I got some sleep and play with the seat. It's got a few preset modes. Here you can see this is the relax mode, not fully lie flat. It just kind of tilts you back into a nice little bucket seat. Very comfortable, I will say. But what we're really all here for is that fully lie flat bed, and it is actually of a pretty good size. What I will say especially is once you lay the bedding down, it does get pretty comfortable. However, the seat itself is pretty hard, and so it's not the most comfortable bed I've ever had on an airplane, especially without a mattress pad of any kind. But it was plenty comfortable enough to get some sleep if that's what you wanted to do, and considering it was a 2 a.m. departure, most people were pretty tired by the time they got on board anyway. One thing I will say is that the foot area was actually a pretty nice size, and you can see here even on your side, you do have plenty of space, although actually my knees were the thing that kept hitting the seat. And I wasn't actually planning on getting any sleep on this flight, but apparently I did because I was woken up by them telling us breakfast would be served shortly. So I woke up to see a little bit of the sunrise as well, meaning that I could finally get a good view of this beautiful wingtip on our A330neo. Now we were given the choice of either egg or meat for our breakfast selection. I went with the egg option, which came alongside a slice of ham, tomato, potatoes, and both a plain and chocolate croissant next to our fruit cup as well. Now, one thing that I will say I was somewhat surprised by is, remember, this is an AirHub operated flight. Even though it looks exactly like Air Senegal, it's wet lease operated by AirHub, meaning the flight attendants aren't actually Air Senegal flight attendants. Now, they were speaking in English and French, which makes sense because that's our departure and destination language. However, it seemed like they were saying some of the cabin announcements in Wolof as well. Remember that Wolof is the regional language to Senegal other than French, so I was impressed that they were able to give some of those cabin announcements in Wolof in addition. It wasn't long before they announced we'd be making our final descent into New York's John F. Kennedy Airport, meaning that they were finally prepping the cabin for arrival as we made our descent into a very cloudy and foggy New York City. Air Senegal uses Terminal 1 at JFK Airport, which is kind of the terminal that is used for the other international airlines that don't quite fit in with any of the other alliances, I guess. It's just kind of random, honestly. I don't necessarily get the scheme they go with. But unfortunately, landing on runway 4 right means that there's really no efficient way for us to get to that terminal, meaning we had a long taxi no matter which way we took to get there. What that does mean at JFK is we got a good view of the large variety of airplanes that park here at John F. Kennedy as we taxied our A330neo around the entire airport and over to our terminal. It also gave us plenty of time to reflect on the flight that we were just getting off of. Recently, I've been very fortunate to be able to try out some of Africa's business classes, and those videos should be up shortly. Airlines like South African Airways, Ethiopian Airlines, Kenya Airways, those types of things. And what I will have to say is I do think that Air Senegal has the best African business class. Unfortunately, they're such a small size considering they only have the two A330s and their only North American route is to JFK. Luckily, it is still at a pretty good rate. For example, if you just book a flight from JFK to Senegal, business class is only about $1,200, which is not much more than you would pay to fly economy on another airline like Delta's service from JFK to Dakar. So I do find the value to be worth it, and I find the seat and service to be just as good as the other airlines, making it what I think Africa's best business class. I'm very curious to know what you guys think though down below, so let me know what you guys think. As I said goodbye to this beautiful business class cabin, I was kind of thinking about when I could try it out again. I do have plans to go back to Senegal next year, and I honestly would love to fly it again after having such a positive experience this time. Another thing I loved about this flight is that it operates as somewhat of a reverse red-eye, meaning that we left this morning and we arrived a little bit later the same morning. So it wasn't quite exactly the overnight flight, but we arrived at 6:30 a.m., meaning we could connect to pretty much any flight out of JFK. But more importantly, there was nobody in line at immigration because we were the first arrival to Terminal 1 this morning. So in a matter of about 5 to 10 minutes, we had our bags and we were through immigration and back out into the world of New York. And the last thought that I want to leave you with is that Akon, the famous music artist, does not have global entry or TSA pre-check, meaning that while we headed through global entry and grabbed our bags and out to the curb, Akon himself was in the normal immigration line with everybody else just waiting to get through. With that though, thank you for joining me on this journey on Air Senegal from Dakar out to John F. Kennedy. Let me know your thoughts down below on Air Senegal, or if you can think of an African airline that you think is better. But in the meantime, safe travels and I'll see y'all next time.